All right, ready for another deep dive? Today we're going somewhere you might not expect.
Oh, where's that?
The fascinating and surprisingly complex world of sponges.
Sponges? Really?
Yeah, sponges. We're looking at some really cool research out of the University of Hawaii.
Oh, okay. I know LH has a ton of marine research.
Right, exactly. And they just made a pretty incredible discovery in a place that you'd think had already revealed all its secrets.
What, like off Waikiki or something?
No, even better, Kāneʻohe Bay.
Wow. Kāneʻohe Bay. That's been studied for ages. I mean, what could they possibly find that's new there?
Well, how about 10 new species of sponge?
10. Seriously?
Yeah, 10. It's like finding a hidden room in a house you lived in your whole life.
That's wild. But wait, are these just like slightly different versions of sponges we already know?
No, these are totally new to science.
Wow. Totally new species. You're kidding.
Not kidding. And the crazy part is they're endemic to that specific location.
Endemic. So like they're only found right there in Kāneʻohe Bay.
Exactly. Yeah. Which really makes you wonder what else is still out there waiting to be discovered.
It really does. But hold on. How did they even find these sponges? Was someone just snorkeling around and got lucky?
Not quite. They use something called autonomous reef monitoring structures, or RMS for short.
RMS. Sounds kind of sci-fi, doesn't it? What are those?
Well, picture this. Imagine little apartment complexes designed specifically for sponges.
Okay, so like little sponge condos. Why go through all that trouble, though? Why not just collect sponges the regular way?
That's the thing about sponges. They can be incredibly difficult to study.
Really? Why is that? I mean, they just seem to kind of sit there.
Oh, it's not that simple. First off, they're super fragile,
Yeah.
often with lifespans of just a few months.
Huh. See, I didn't know that. I always thought they lived for years and years.
Nope, not these guys. And to make things even trickier, they love to hide in all those little nooks and crannies within the reef.
Oh, so it's like trying to study something that's constantly moving and disappearing.
Exactly. Imagine trying to study butterflies in a hurricane. That's kind of what it's like trying to track these elusive creatures.
Okay, that makes more sense. But I gotta ask, why go through all the trouble? I mean, why are scientists so interested in these seemingly simple creatures? What makes them so important?
Well, it turns out sponges play a vital role in maintaining healthy coral reefs.
Oh, really? I didn't realize they were that important.
Yeah, and especially in the way they cycle nutrients.
Nutrient cycling. Okay, now you've got me curious. Tell me more about that.
So sponges are basically filter feeders. They draw in water and remove bacteria and other organic matter, which helps keep the water nice and clean.
That makes sense. Sort of like the ocean's cleaning crew.
Exactly. But here's where it gets even cooler.
All right, I'm all ears. What happens next?
Well, they don't just trap this stuff, they actually process it. And then, get this, they release it back into the ecosystem in a form that other organisms, like corals, can actually use.
Whoa, so they're like tiny little recycling plants.
Exactly. And in nutrient-poor environments, like many Pacific reefs, this role becomes even more critical.
Okay, so I'm starting to see why scientists are so excited about these new discoveries. It's not just about adding new names to a list. It's about understanding how these ecosystems actually function, right?
Exactly. Each new species is like a new chapter in the story of these ecosystems and how they've evolved over time.
It's amazing how something so small can tell such a big story.
It really is. And speaking of stories, did you hear about the names they chose for these new sponges?
Oh, yeah, I read something about that. Didn't they incorporate some Hawaiian language?
Yeah, they did. They were really thoughtful about the whole process.
Yeah.
They wanted to honor the cultural significance of the location where they were found, Moku'ulue, and incorporate Ulelo, Hawaii into the names.
It's cool how they wove those elements together. It shows respect for the place and its history.
Definitely. For example, one of the new species is called Stelletta hokuwanawana.
Stelletta hokuwanawana. That's a mouthful. What does that even mean?
Well, hoku translates to star, and wanawana means spiny or thorny. So put it together and you get thorny star, which is pretty fitting considering the sponge's appearance.
Thorny star. I like it. It's got a nice ring to it.
Right. It's like science and culture coming together in a beautiful way.
But that's just one species, right?
Right. And get this, they've collected over 1,000 specimens from that one reef.
Wow, over 1,000. That's a lot of sponges.
Yeah, and they didn't just stop there. They've placed these ARMS in 5 different ecoregions across the Pacific.
5. So this is like a massive Pacific-wide research project.
Exactly. But with that much data, how do they even begin to make sense of it all? It's like trying to solve a 1,000-piece puzzle with only half the pieces.
It's definitely a challenge, but it's also what makes this research so exciting. One of their goals is to create a complete inventory of sponge diversity across all of Oceania.
So like a sponge census for the entire region.
Yeah, pretty much. They want to know which species are endemic to specific areas, like those 10 we talked about, and which ones are more widespread.
So they're basically mapping out the sponge distribution and figuring out how all these populations are connected.
Exactly. It's like connecting the dots on a giant map of sponge diversity. And this goes way beyond just sponge taxonomy.
Okay, so there's more to it than just figuring out what kind of sponge is what.
Right. By understanding those distribution patterns, we can actually learn more about the biogeographical connections between these different regions.
Biogeographical connections. Okay, I'm going to need you to break that down for me. What are those exactly?
Sure. Basically, it's about understanding how the distribution of species across different geographical areas is influenced by things like geological history, ocean currents, even past climate events. Imagine piecing together this historical puzzle of how life has moved and adapted across the Pacific.
Whoa. So these tiny sponges could hold clues to the grand story of the entire Pacific Ocean.
It really is. And think about this. As our oceans face these increasing threats from climate change and pollution, understanding the diversity and resilience of these ecosystems is becoming even more important.
Right, because if we don't know what's there and how it all works, how can we even begin to protect it?
Exactly. And that's where these new sponge discoveries come in. They really highlight the incredible resilience and adaptability of life in these challenging environments.
Okay, I get that part. But how exactly does that help us protect coral reefs?
Well, these sponges may hold the key to new biomolecules or adaptations that could help us understand how reefs are coping with these changing conditions.
So by studying these new species, we could potentially learn how to help other coral reef organisms adapt and survive in a changing ocean.
Exactly. It's about finding solutions inspired by nature. And who knows, they might even lead to breakthroughs in other fields like medicine or materials science.
I love those kinds of unexpected connections. It's like every new species is a potential treasure trove of information just waiting to be unlocked.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out for a second. What does this all mean for the average person, the non-scientist listening to this right now? Why should they care about these new sponge species?
You know, it's a great question. I think it really comes down to this. These discoveries remind us that there's still so much we don't know about our planet. We often think we've explored and mapped everything.
Yeah, like we've got it all figured out.
Right. But the truth is, there are hidden worlds teeming with life right under our noses, even in places we think we know well.
It's like that saying, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly. And that sense of wonder, that thirst for knowledge, is what drives scientific discovery and pushes us to explore further. It's about recognizing the value of biodiversity, not just for its own sake, but for the potential benefits it holds for us.
It's like a reminder to never stop being curious, to never take the world around us for granted.
Absolutely. Every creature, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, has a role to play in the balance of our planet. And by understanding those roles, we can start to appreciate the interconnectedness of all life and why it's so important to protect it.
So the next time we're at the beach, maybe we should stop and take a closer look at those sponges instead of just walking by.
Exactly. You never know what secrets they might be hiding.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. We always hear about these big discoveries in far-off places like the rainforest or the deep sea.
Yeah.
But then you've got these incredible discoveries happening right here in what you might call our own backyard, like these sponges, just hanging out in a bay that's been studied for decades.
It's true. We tend to get caught up in the exotic, the far away, the unknown.
Right, but sometimes the most amazing things are right in front of us.
Absolutely. It's
Well,
like never underestimate the power of just looking around and seeing what's there.
Totally. So for our listeners out there who are feeling inspired, ready to tap into their inner scientist, what advice would you give them? Where should they start?
That's a good question. I think the most important thing is to be curious.
Curiosity, yeah.
Yeah, just pay attention to the world around you. Ask questions. Notice the little details.
The little things, yeah.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty.
Get out there and explore.
Exactly. You don't need a fancy lab or a degree to make observations.
That's so true. Everyone can be a scientist in their own way. Who knows? And maybe some of our listeners will make their own amazing discoveries right in their own communities.
I never know. Anyone can contribute.
It's all about that curious mind and the willingness to look closer.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of sponges. I gotta say, I'm walking away with a whole new appreciation for these creatures.
Me too. They're not just simple blobs, are they?
Not at all. They're vital parts of these incredible ecosystems.
Nutrient cycling champs. And who knows what other secrets they're hiding.
Exactly. So, listeners, the next time you find yourself at the beach, take a moment to really look at those sponges.
Yeah.
What might you discover?
Never underestimate the power of curiosity. There's a whole universe waiting to be explored, even in the most unexpected places.
And on that note, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.